Hello, cosmic beings out there. I'm Mannah, a therapeutic astrologer and interviewer. I'm passionate about learning and sharing insights on how to live a better life. I hope you'll stick around as I infiltrate the minds of thought leaders, authors, and healers from around the globe. Wherever you find yourself right now, dear listener, I want you to remember that you have a place to call whole. Now, please enjoy this episode. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to tap into the mysteries of the human psyche. I have a very special guest with us today, Pamela Eakins, who has authored over 20 books, including Tarot of the Spirit, that I'm in the middle of reading right now. And that's a little late, actually, because it's from 92, but better late than never. And I feel it's really timeless, actually. So I don't feel I'm late in that sense. But Pamela is a sociologist with a background in psychology, and now is the founder of Pacific Mystery School. Welcome, Pamela.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
I am really enjoying your book. I've read different pieces of your books because you can do that. You know, you can download a sample from different from your books on Amazon if you want to just read a little bit before buying it. And then I bought Tarot of the Spirit because because I'm into that. I'm into the tarot, and I just want to say that I'm so I really appreciate your writings. I really appreciate the way that,
You.
the way that you are not condescending, if you know what I mean. I mean, today I feel a lot of books are pamphlets. They could be pamphlets in a way.
Mm.
And your stuff is serious and it's taking us there. And for me, it's fine that I don't get it because I can just read it again and again and again, right? So I like the way that you dare to write so rich and dense in wisdom. I don't know if
Mm.
you get what I'm saying
Thank
there.
you.
Hmm?
I really appreciate that. So the Tarot of the Spirit, like you said, it was published in 1992.
Yeah.
So that was 33 years ago. And it took us 7 years to create it. So that's how old it really is.
Mhm.
And it's totally relevant. I'm teaching a class right now. Oh, maybe I can say what I'm teaching. Maybe I can start there and
Please do.
then we could back up and look at some of these things because if anyone listening would like to join right now, two very special things are happening. So the website is tarotofthespirit.com. Okay. So that's where you would sign up if you wanted to participate in the Mystery School, Pacific Mystery School right now, because we are offering two amazing certifications for free. They're not, you have to be in the class. The class is called Second Saturday Tarot, and we meet every second Saturday of the month and for 3 hours. But this year only offering these two amazing certifications. One is Tarot Teacher Training, and the other one is called Visionary Cosmology. So we might be able to go into that a little bit. And the only reason that that's happening this year is because I am working with the most amazing teachers, master teachers that you can imagine, and they're interning with me right now. So because they're interning, we get to offer this thing for free. So anyway, tarot
Wow.
teacher, yeah, I mean, only this has never happened before and will never happen again, but it's starting like right away. So if anybody wants to do it, they have to leap in and they could get both certifications. That'd be two different teachers, but both certifications, like right now. Okay, so anyway, so that is by way of saying, by the way, that Tarot of the Spirit is still relevant because we're using that as one of the books.
Mm.
And it is relevant. It's relevant because you asked me earlier, you asked me, well, if you could, so that 1992,
I'll ask you actually. Exactly.
yeah.
I'll ask you. Yeah, it's because I was wondering what would you add today as the person you've developed into being? What would you add to that book? I know you've written many books since, but it would just be a fun experiment to think if you wrote it today, what would there be pieces that you would add?
So for that particular book, there's nothing I would add.
Wow.
It took 7 years to write that book.
Great.
The seeds of that book were very deep. When this is one of the only tarot books, I do believe, Tarot of the Spirit, I think it's one of the only tarot books that's completely footnoted. That comes out of my academic background. This is
Love
the book, Tarot of the Spirit, with a
love it.
little property of thing on it, but
Mhm.
Tarot of the Spirit. And um, when I was doing this book, when I was creating it, I was completely immersed in the study of comparative world religions plus indigenous spirituality. So every piece of this book is footnoted where it came from, what was the source, where did it come from, and most particularly the Western mystery tradition, which is the tradition that I'm kind of sitting inside of right now. So Pacific Mystery School is a branch of the Western mystery tradition, which is all these secret societies and secret teachings that roll down for, some people say 1,000 years, some people say 400 years, but in any event, they're all still around. A lot of these secret societies with special, okay, here it is. It's with special teachings, a set of teachings which would be a paradigm or a worldview that might be different from the dominant paradigm in any given society, okay, whatever that means. And today is no exception, because what I'm trying to do now, I'm getting ahead of myself and I'll come back, but a big part of what I'm trying to do and the impetus behind Tarot of the Spirit 40 years ago, because that's when my mother painted the cards. So that's when we started, okay? And the impetus was to find a new, oh, I got it, okay. Find a different way of thinking, new paradigms to bring forward some answers to questions that were plaguing humans. And back then, the human species. So even back then, I was very, very concerned about war. That was the number one, about violence, war, immigration. I don't mention it directly in the book, but these things, and then this kind of flow that was happening in the world, and then how different religions address each of these issues. So I was deeply immersed in comparative religion when I wrote Tarot of the Spirit. So I wouldn't take any of that back. I wouldn't omit anything. I wouldn't add anything. But I will say that this is the other book we're using right now. You asked me a question, I can go on for an hour. This
I've
is the other book.
I've listened to you on YouTube, so I know.
Right, don't ask her a question. Okay. Um, Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, or Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, depending on what language you're speaking. And this book, so this is very thick. It's like 1,000 pages. Tarot of the Spirit's pretty thick too. It's like 400 pages, but this other one is bigger. So these two books, they work together. Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit and Tarot of the Spirit, they overlap a tiny bit, but not too much. So this is the basic kind of philosophy, and it's contained in these two books. And yeah, so whatever I needed to add, I did add in Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, which basically is the whole structure of the Western mystery tradition and Pacific Mystery School is contained in that book, Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit. So yeah, okay, that is a huge answer, and it doesn't even feel complete, but it's a big answer.
I like that. And you're very welcome to do that here. That's why I love the podcast format, because it doesn't have to just be quick snippets of information, but it can be an in-depth answer. So no, I appreciate you, and I really can sense your Aquarius moon. So you have the moon in the sign of
Oh,
Aquarius. I can sense
I
it.
do.
Yeah, like being ahead of your time. You were talking about, stuff that we're going through now. You were talking about that years ago. And I think that's also why I feel it is so ageless, so timeless reading the book. I don't feel we're in the 19th when I'm reading it. It's like, it's so relevant right now. And yeah, that information, wisdom comes through you like that. I also feel that's a feature of the Aquarius moon. And that's actually a thing that I also wanted to speak to you about, the whole thing about different ways of learning. You mentioned it, like a new paradigm and different ways of knowing. Um, but so because you are who you are, I can also ask you several questions all at once, right? I think you can manage.
Sure.
Yes, I think
Absolutely.
you
Go
can
for it.
you can do it. You can.
Bring it on. Question. Okay. Okay. I'm going to interrupt you well, here's a pair that the word question, quest, and then ION means into. The word question means journey into. So
Yeah,
let's go.
that is
Let's
so.
go.
That is
Okay.
a bit complex. So just holding those different ways of learning, and I think that's why I also really enjoy reading the book, because it's not just things to remember, um, but it speaks to, maybe just it speaks to my right brain, is it? But the thing I also want to ask you about is the concept of desire, and it's very potent. It's very there when I found your work. It was like, yes, I felt so drawn to it. And that's how I feel towards certain teachings. So I personally know this desire a lot. It's also something you talk a lot about in evolutionary astrology that I'm in, and also in NAM therapy that I'm in. Actually, you don't say, yeah, you couldn't say desire in NAM therapy, but the way that you describe desire in Tarot of the Spirit, that's similar to when NAM are describing the spontaneous movement of healing that is innate to us. So I'm so curious to hear you elaborate on this term of desire.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting what you just said about the spontaneous movement of healing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because what I'm feeling is if there's something that, okay, healing means to make wholeness, right? So if something is weighing us down and we're trapped in something that's too small
Mhm.
or not right, we can't heal. We're not going to be able to heal. In fact, it can make us really sick to be trapped into something that doesn't work for our soul. And I think the desire and the passion and the awakening, that's about soul. That is soul. That's on the soul level, what our soul wants. But so many times our ego, out of fear, is mostly out of fear, tells us we should do this, we should do this, we should do this, or you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to get this, you need to get this degree or certification or something like that in order to survive on this planet. And we have to pick these slots and move into them. And when we do that, what winds up happening, I mean, it's okay. I'm not speaking against that. I believe in that too, but it has to be our passion. It has to be our desire, because otherwise we can, this is outrageous, but it's true. We can wind up participating in the reproduction of a social order by which our very soul is denied. That's what can happen. And when our soul is denied by that social order, we can start to feel really trapped. That's a tarot card too. It can correspond with the 10 of Wands. We use fire in our deck, but it can be, we can get repressed. And for me, the biggest crime against the universe, and this is a really hard one, it's really hard. So I'm careful too when I talk to people about this. The biggest crime against the universe, and there's a big story behind that, but the biggest crime is to not follow your calling, your call, your passion, your desire. That's which comes from your heart. Yeah, okay. I think that's enough about that right now. But it's pretty intense. It's intense stuff, and we can get sick when we don't.
Okay. Okay. I have to, yeah, I have to ask you about this because you, yeah. So we can reproduce a social order that's actually going to keep us disenchanted, if you will, not aligned with the soul. But we do have to make it here in the descent here on Earth, and
Mhm.
to me, it often seems like I have to go against what I really want. It seems I have to
Mhm.
compromise just being in a body, right? It's part of the
Right,
premise is, okay, I do have physical needs. I have to be here.
exactly. I
So
absolutely understand
how do we
that.
avoid?
Okay, so first of all, just backtracking a bit to the origins of Tarot of the Spirit, because that Tarot of the Spirit, the Western mystery tradition, even the study of comparative religions is not what I was supposed to do in the world. Okay, so this generated a lot of conflict within myself. And the big turning point was, so I already had a PhD in sociology. I already was a research scholar at Stanford University. And I mean, that was kind of the pinnacle academically, in academia. So I have a big background in academia. And the big turning point for me was that I went to El Salvador in the middle of the war there, with a delegation, a humanitarian delegation, studying, of all things, the effects of war on health. And what we interviewed, there were 16 doctors and nurses, me, a sociologist, and a reporter from the Los Angeles Times. And we interviewed 200 groups there, different groups that were working in different aspects of the culture. And it was a treacherous, dangerous, horrific situation. We did not think we would get out alive. That was a big part of it. It was really terrible. And I was only, I say only, I was 32 years old and already at the peak of my academic career, unbelievably, because I was working really hard and really fast, very what we call type A, very, working really, really hard. So then the people that we met, and I was a political activist too. So then the people that we were meeting, a lot of the people were saying, this situation of war is never going to be solved by political activism, because what it's about, and you can generalize it, what it's about is, it is about, it's power struggles. And these power struggles keep happening over and over and over, the same power struggles. And when I did ask people who were the revolutionaries, and I had deep interaction with the revolutionaries, and I asked them, not if you get in power, but when you get in power. It's a very dangerous situation, all this. When you get in power, what is your vision? And they were extremely unhappy about that question because they were saying, well, our vision is to get the things we don't have, which would be food, medicine, clean water, the basic stuff. And I say, well, what is your vision? How will you change the government once you're in power? To which they had no answer. What they said was, once we get the power, then we will figure it out. So in other words, it was going to be an overturn. The whole idea was a movement into a new people, but it would be the same model. Okay, so I was in a very vulnerable space, and I'm like, no, this is not going to work. We need, and some of these other people were saying it needs to be a spiritual solution. Like some of these people were liberation theologists and so on. So anyway, we have to have a spiritual solution. That means a change of heart across the board. So I came back and I couldn't get that out of my consciousness. In fact, I came back with PTSD, a bad case of PTSD. But anyway, so what came up, and this goes to something you said when you just now, when you started to speak about this, that you said you felt like I wasn't speaking in a condescending way. And there's no condescension here, believe me, because I do not know. I don't know. The idea is seeking spiritual solutions that arise up from within the self. So my gift all along turned out to be asking the questions, the journey into, and then you would be you. Mannah, you would be the one. You're the one. You're the one. You're the one. And so to get out from under, so we might have to work within the existing structures, but at the same time, if we're learning, if we're growing, if we're blossoming out of our deep interior, I think we can at least start there with that. So everything that I do is not about telling people what the vision is. It's about finding the vision within yourself for your life. And when I went into that soul work for myself, I eventually had to leave the university, which killed me because I worked so hard to get there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, it was my whole life. And eventually I had to take that leap of the fool, take a risk, and move into this planet in a way that helps people awaken, not to me, but to themselves.
So was it a series of years where you felt you were compromising, or did you actually you were in that academic career with your heart and soul, and then you had the turning? Or was there a period where you had to compromise?
Oh, I was with my heart and soul
Okay.
because when I began, I thought that that would be the way. I mean, I thought that the academic path was the way for me. Yes, anyone anyone who goes into sociology goes because they want to help people. I mean, you go that direction because you want to help people because it's all about looking at things like the dark side. Sociology is the field of the dark side. So it's the dark side of humans in groups, right? And then how people get hurt by that. So I thought, okay, that's the direction. And I still use everything I learned and taught in sociology is completely awake within me still. But 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 it's looking at the field looks more at the existing um, categories and things like that, not so much at what is possible. And even psychology looks more at how can we realign ourselves to fit into Sorry, that might be, these are really big generalizations, but anyway, it's kind
I
of how
like
can we realign ourselves to fit into the existing structure? Okay, what about if we, what about if all over the planet we start to come up with these new ideas? And it's so exciting because I work with people all over the planet, and non-English speakers. And now we can do that with these translator programs and things. So it's amazing. So I'm working with people all over the entire planet right now, people in enemy countries, so they have the same feeling, the same ideas, even if they're fighting against supposedly fighting against some other country. But within each of those countries, it doesn't matter where you look, there are people who are just blossoming up like the new world, the new, and I don't like to use words like new age because that kind of locks it into some kind of preconception. I think it's more like the blossoming of the tree of life with each generation coming up. Okay, and where can we go as humans? I believe, I believe that we can change the trajectory of our species, and um, that may be a belief. I mean, I should say rather, I would like to do that, and that may not happen. And there have always been people who have been arising with new ideas, different ideas, and this year we're in the year of the hermit. We have always had that archetype with us, the person who is in the monastery contemplating, um, in the hut, in the cave, and what could be, and maybe even teaching that, maybe even bringing that forward or asking people the question, what do you think could be? Do you think it could be different? You
mm,
know,
mm. Pamela,
so anyway, yeah, so it's not condescending at all. It's
mm,
like, come on, what do you think? What do you think? Like, what do you think, Mannah? You know?
no, I really feel you. And I want to say that when you speak, it's not that I'm just sitting back and listening. I'm like, I'm with you. I'm with you and making notes in my head. And I feel like you take me places. So it's not a passive listening that I'm doing. That's how I feel when you speak. Um, and I really hear all the Aquarian archetype there, the highest version of it. And where you're also saying here at the end, yeah, it's about you and me, and let's be equals, and let's talk about this. Could it be different from the program, if we can call it that, from the wiring that has happened to us? And that's what I sensed when you were talking about even psychology can be just a field of let's not, let's make sure people have a job or something. So everything can be misused if we don't dare to look beyond and envision something else. That's how I hear you.
Mhm.
Part of what I hear.
Right, and yeah, and that envisioning, I call myself a visionary cosmologist, and that's one of the certifications we're offering this year. But cosmology is a story that is told about the universe from its origins to the present, and it's also a story told about culture, like any culture, what's the cosmology of the culture? How did it arise? What are the creation stories? Things like that. How did it become? But so that's cosmology, and visionary is looking beyond. I'll just say beyond. Like I'm looking at your set. I love your set. I love the feeling of the universe. I'm really into it, Uh, in fact, here's the cover of my visionary cosmology book. Check it out. See
Wow.
this? It's like well, I'm just showing you the stars and stuff. Well, here we are filled with the stars. So this reminds me of your beautiful, beautiful background there. So, but I feel that it's not for everyone to imagine or envision. It could be if they want to, but again, going back to the idea of desire,
Mm.
if it's in somebody's imagination to do that, it's like, okay, I want to talk to you if it's in your imagination, but it's not in everybody's imagination. We're all different. We're meant to be different. We're like seeds in a garden where each one of us is different and unique, and we're meant to be that way. So I'm not judging someone who doesn't have that call to be a visionary at all, at all. But if you do have that call, let's talk about it, you know.
Let's talk about it. And I have some questions for that. First, just I want to make sure you also get into the topic of different ways of learning and different ways of knowing, I guess.
Oh,
Um,
good.
right? Because that's what I feel is it's in a way, even though it's advanced stuff that you're writing, it's easy for me because it's right brain material in a way. Whereas I'm also a yoga teacher, and when I had to learn autonomy, I mean that's just still not anatomy. Can't even say
Yeah.
the word. That's the another brain, and it's much more difficult. So, but I was
Mhm.
curious about that because you write about that in one of the books. And oh, did I forget the other thing? Yeah, maybe I forgot the other thing. So maybe start there and then I'll remember.
Different ways of learning
Yeah.
and different ways of knowing and different ways of teaching. And again, that goes back to the concept that each one of us is unique. So I mean, we're talking really generally. We're not even zeroing in on the tarot, but we'll come back to the tarot. But the tarot, this tarot deck, Tarot of the Spirit, is is a representative of the Western mystery tradition, and each card is a flashcard of knowledge from the Western mystery tradition. So I'm just going to put that in a holding pattern because we kind of left that subject behind. We're talking about big stuff, and I am with you on this, the big stuff, the visionary stuff. So each one of us is 99 is composed of 99.9% Earth-based DNA, but that DNA comes out of the stars. So when we say, yeah, we're made of stars, we are made of the matter and the energy that exists in the universe. We are not separate from the universe. The universe is out there somewhere, but it's also within us. Okay, so that's a starting point. We are universe. We are not separate from the universe, and we are not aliens here. We grew up in this natural progression in this way. And ironically, well, I don't know, it's not ironic, but it's interesting that our known universe specializes in individuality. So it's that 0.1% of the DNA that never has been before and never will be again. Never. There will never be a Mannah again. There may be somebody else with that name, but that person is not you, will never be you, could never be you. And even if we have past lives, they're going to be different. So right now, this is part of the cosmology, we are state of the art universe at the cutting edge of its existence, universe at the cutting edge of its existence. This is huge with specialized DNA, never having been before, never having been again. And this specialized DNA actually applies to every individual, every one that exists, including every cat, every dog, every tree, every plant, every star. There are no two stars that are exact clones of each other. Every single star is an individual, our planet. So we're working with this individual energy, and it's supposed to be that way. Why is it supposed to be that way? This is a rhetorical question. This is Pamela talking, right? Why is it this way? And why is it supposed to be this way? Because the universe is on a big adventure. And the adventure is the path of its own creativity. What can become? And we are part of that adventure. What can become? So, what we want to do is it's the ancient wisdom, Socrates, know thyself. Okay, so who are you? How do you learn? Because we're different, like you said, right brain, right? So I'm kind of in my right brain and my left brain because I also have a linear aspect to my brain that I work with, and I also have that right brain deep mystical. It's mystical imagination, mystical resonance and vibration, that. So both of those. Okay, so these books are written, well, let me put it this way. The first person who told me, oh, I read your book, well, which book? I said, Tarot of the Spirit, I just got done reading it. I read the whole book and I'm like, you read the whole book? This was foreign to me. It's not really meant to be, I didn't do it to be read like that. Now, if you did read the whole thing, that would be great. You would really learn a lot. I mean, since then, I met many people who've read the whole book. But what it was meant to do was to go into these different ideas at will, like at will, when in the moment, or work with the tarot cards,
And just
and then,
look it
right,
up. Mm.
look it up and use it like a reference book. So I walk a balance, I think, in everything I do that is for both the right brain and the left brain to work, to come together and talk to each other. So that's a very female brain. That's what the female brain does. It both sides talk and especially to really bring in and honor the right brain because it's because most books that we read are left brain, and I understand that because you have to have the organization to write a book. It's not easy to write a book, you know. So, but to be able to because because everybody is as fabulous as everybody else,
Mm.
just different. So, when they talk about neurological divergence, neurodivergence,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, we're supposed to be neurodivergent. Everybody's neurodivergent, but it just turns out that there's a segment of people who are more in the
Moja.
middle, and then but it doesn't just go out to one side or another side. It goes out in a, let's make it like a star pattern, rays, because we're supposed to be that way, just like all the stars are that way. We're supposed to, because we're part of the creativity. Okay,
Right.
I'm yelling. I feel myself yelling, right? I mean, I love this stuff so much. You can tell how much I love it,
Love
you
listening
know.
to it. Because it's a comment on everything that I'm experiencing. That's why it feels so important. Um, and it's a big deal with people getting these diagnoses um, at the moment.
Mhm.
It's a big deal. I mean, it's so many clients and people I know just they just
Mhm.
come with that diagnosis and oh now I found this out. And I mean I could have said these same words years ago, but it keeps happening. I don't know what it is. It keeps happening for people that yeah, this need for that diagnosis to say that's something with the brain and that's why I don't fit in school and whatever else. So
Right.
I'm really curious about it because
Okay, so we're learning divergent, and we're cosmologically divergent. That's what we really are.
yeah,
Because somebody who is really quote on the spectrum or whatever, and maybe this person is very much an introvert and maybe not connecting really well, but is the most incredible mathematician, or it's just okay. So So it's like, what does a child need to hear? I was just talking about this in the just last Saturday in the second Saturday tarot class. I made a YouTube video on it. Um, yeah, and it's about what does a child need to hear? That baby needs to hear, you belong here. You're perfect. We welcome you. We love you. And we're going to help you step into the path, the right path for your own being. And you, my darling child, you, if you can. I only have so much time left, but you, if you can, take the disc of Earth and cast it much further and load my large flowering tree with fruit. And that fruit could be all the ideas and everything. That's a semi quote from Nikos Kazantzakis about awakening to our path and then bringing that path forward, which is a luxury, I know, because we're not told that. That's not what happens. What happens is get a job. You bet. And you've got to have the right job because we have to survive and we got to keep this going. And I get that part too. I understand that. I understand that. I'm not standing in judgment of it. And I've been a parent and I know how hard it is to balance those things with your own children, and what your philosophy is going to be with your own children because you want them to be able to survive. But if we could shift the culture a little bit, maybe we can help that child blossom into that child's own neuro celebration
Mhm.
of whatever that means.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, absolutely. I think it does require a celebration of differences to get past this point where it's the only go-to when you are struggling. And yeah. Anyway, I wanted to ask you a little while ago, but it's related to what you're saying right now. How do we know that the vision that we have or the calling that we have doesn't come from a very burdened part of us? You know, that whole, oh, I'm going to show them and I'm going to be this. And that's why we're dreaming it up, is actually out of some structure that's more of a
Mhm.
coping mechanism than it is a pure calling. I think I can feel that that's a little bit. mm I mean, the desire is so strong in me, for example, with your work, right? With evolutionary astrology, some things I'm just so drawn to. And I just know it comes from my soul. But other visions that I can have of myself in the future, I can be in doubt of, oh, is that maybe related to my childhood trauma? Is it what I'm meant to do?
Mhm. Hmm. That's really complex, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because maybe the childhood trauma does shape us because it is part of our path. Like the trauma that I experienced in that war zone, um, was that part of my deep calling? Not really. I mean, my life changed when I experienced that kind of trauma being inside a war. Um, and it was so traumatic, that, yes, it did influence me. It took me a while. It wasn't immediate. It took me a little while to understand how I had been influenced and why, because I came back, in my, I didn't even think about it. I just stepped straight back into the life I left. I mean, I didn't realize I had been changed by it. So, and then when I began to realize I had been, oh, this goes back to the origins of Tarot of the Spirit. When I began to realize I had been changed by it, and I began to think more deeply about it and process it, which took a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, really. Um, I decided to, oh, first I started by speaking about it openly. This is pre-internet. That's how long ago it was. So I was doing workshops, lectures, lots of radio shows, radio TV kind of things. and talking about what was really going on. And so I started there. But then I was told I was given the message from the government to stop. So, um, yep. And then I got scared. And so, but then I really knew it was part of my path.
Yeah.
So I made a game. A game. It's a game with cards. I made a card game and a book to go with it. And I stepped away from taking it on directly. So, but I still knew I had to take it on. And I also knew that once the game came out, was published, and as I said, it took 7 years, I knew it would compromise my academic career at the time because yeah, I think it might be a little more open now, but then you were not making a tarot deck and being a professor in the university or whatever. It it did not, it was it didn't work that way. Okay, now it might be possible now because, and there are universities where it's more open because I did migrate to another university where I taught that was much more open and kind of an alternative sort of place. And I could talk about it openly, but in the very straight, I don't know how to call it, it's almost like a very straight academic world, it did not belong. It diminished your academic career to do anything like that. But I had to go in the direction of the game, in the game. So I was in the game. So, and I knew I was in the game, and I knew I was leaping off a cliff, and that was a cliff I struggled so hard to ascend. I like climbing the rocks to the summit, and then I make it to the summit, and I knew I had to leap off, and I didn't know if I could fly, and I didn't know how to fly. I didn't even know what I was doing. So, but I made this game, and there were many, many synchronicities in the world that happened that led to the publication of this game, because this is in the days before self-publishing. There wasn't, that didn't exist. And so, yeah, you could not self-publish a deck of cards. It would have cost $100,000. That'd be $500,000 today. It was impossible, almost impossible. So because there were only two printing presses that did this. One was in Belgium and one was in Switzerland. That was it. And so you had to work with somebody who had access to those presses. And yeah, so that was publishers. Only a few too. Only a few publishers had access. So anyway, but I did the game and it came together and is still it's still out there. It's still
Yeah.
probably more so now even than in the
Yeah.
beginning,
Yeah.
as tarot becomes more popular, because when we started the game, there were only 7 tarot decks on the market. 7. And
Oh,
okay, so 7 tarot decks,
yeah.
7 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. At
Really?
the end of 7 years, that 7 years, there were 700 tarot decks on the market. And now you could not even say there are 7,000. There's way more than 7,000, because now you can make a beautiful deck and publish it yourself because of the technology, So, but back then, no, that wasn't the case. So we took a big leap, and also because tarot, a lot of people felt the because the Bible said that cards, cartomancy, it's called. That's the work of the devil. And I did get a couple of death threats in the early days. And but I think it's more open now, but back then it was not, it wasn't open.
Yeah.
So,
I think it depends on which branch of it, but my background is in religion and I've left the religion, and for that branch that I was in, it was definitely not okay. absolutely not. It would be considered demonic, and not in a
Dem
good sense.
right, exactly, exactly. Okay, so these are ways. Here's another way that culture is kept intact, and we see it all the time, is by creating witch hunts, but the witch would be the other.
Mm.
So it could be anybody, could be the other. Who's taking our resources? That's the other. Who is who is threatening our system that we have created or that's working for us? You know, these kinds of questions. So that still exists. And, you know, right in the United States right now, we're watching these really big witch hunts happening in front of our eyes with massive deportations. And it's happened so fast that people are stunned by it. Americans are stunned by what's happening, and it's so fast. It's so fast. Um,
I have two questions left for you. And the one is how, going back to the tarot and how we can use that to come into our path. And the second is what I think what you're starting to talk about is the state of the world today, because I just want to end with that, a little
mhm,
analysis of where we are with all of this. Um,
right,
yeah, because it is about making the world a better place, right?
right,
Stuff that you're doing. So where are we now with it? But
right.
first I want to go back to how actually, in practical terms, can we use the tarot cards?
How can we use the tarot? And another time you asked me earlier about how do we know that the card is right? How do we, you know, so today, just as I was coming on line with you, today I drew a card for us. And the card is, this is for our conversation. And the card is the sun, okay, the sun card. And this is a card of illumination, transparency under the sun. And it's the major card of spiritual realization, especially after it shows these two lovers naked. Basically, they're transparent and open at the top of a tower. And the tower is everything they've been through. And then they arrive at then they create this newness in this new sort of Garden of Eden where everything is transparent, you know, under the sun. And it's this card of spiritual realization. So that's the card that I drew for us. It's all about spiritual realization. Okay, so what about, could it just be right? I mean, just drawing a random card, does that make it right? And then how can you use it, right?
Yeah.
So one reason, to me, one reason it's right, it is right, it's always right. Oh, that's a big statement. Okay, the reason I say that is because basically, okay, first there are two different kinds of tarot decks, but it doesn't matter because tarot decks all have the same structure.
Yeah.
They basically have the same structure. So if you know the structure and you know the card, and you can apply it to any tarot deck if you know the structure. So, for example, um, the Three of Cups. I'm just pulling some card out of my head, and I'm saying cups. That's not even the name of our card. Ours is a Three of Water, but I'm saying cups just so people get it. A
Yeah.
lot of people are working with the weight deck. So in any event, cups, that's water, it's emotion, and it's also a number three card. And all the threes, but the three card has to do with, it's a birthing card, it's a card of creation, it's a card of expansion. So we have a one, which is that individual energy, that's like you're the number one. Then the number two in all the tarot suits, the number two is the card of your passion, of your desire, is your movement towards something. Every two is that. And this applies, I'm not going to go into it right now in the interest of time, but it also applies to the numerology through the major arcana. So the number two card, and then the number three is you, your passion, you follow your passion, then it gives birth to something. That's the number three. Okay. And then each number has a definition to it. Okay, this has been explored, expanded upon, worked upon for maybe thousands of years, because the 1 through 10 structure is very Egyptian. The fire, water, air, earth structure is indigenous, it's primal in our consciousness. And the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, 500 BC, brought that to the surface, argued about which one came first, but they never argued about fire, water, air, and earth being the primary elements. No one questions that. Worldwide, okay, shamanically, worldwide, those are the elements. Okay, so we got fire, water, air, earth. We got the 1 through 10. And those cards have been honed and honed and honed. And what happens is, if you've got a question or any kind of dilemma from a scientific point of view, any card you draw will stop your spinning consciousness and give you something to focus on and go deeper with. And our imaginations are incredible in terms of telling a story about that card and how it fits and how it works. Okay, so that just from a scientific point of view. But then if you start to work with it and you ask a question and you're doing a reading or spread, then it becomes even more interesting, because you think, this is impossible that I could get these cards, or how could I get the repetition over and over and over of the same card, as if it wants me to work on the card. Something wants me to work on the card. So this, to me, this is the greatest mystery of all, because I've been working with this intensively for 40 years. I've been aware of it and involved for 50 years. But for 40 years, I have been working intensively every single day. And I work with people, I do readings for people. But I just work with it. I work with the structure. I work with
The cat.
this is Angel.
Oh, sweet.
Say hi, Angel.
Hi,
Okay.
Joe.
So maybe she'll go down. Let's see. So anyway, yeah, just wants some attention. But so whatever card you draw is going to work, because you are going to create an amazing story yourself about it. So, oh, I just realized I forgot the question you asked. I went on a roll there.
Yeah, but it was
Oh,
a good
how do we know?
yeah,
How can we use it? That was the
how can we use
question.
it to the calling? Yeah, to find out.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to do a little reading. Okay. Here's a reading. Okay. Here's a reading for the listeners. This is for
Yeah.
all of us and for the listeners. Okay. Because you can also do group readings. That's another weird thing. And then, so you just trust it. So we'll do a really small, a little group reading, which is called issue, action, outcome, 3 cards. What is the issue that we need to focus on to advance our path? And we just got that card, that sun card, which is about spiritual awakening, spiritual presence, spiritual illumination, spiritual realization. Okay, so if we kind of think of that card in the background, which was drawn for our discussion today, and then we say, this is for everybody. What's our collective issue? What action can we take to move the energy? See, that's the path. And what would be the outcome? Okay, this is dangerous stuff, to just do a reading and like see what happens. But I love that. Okay, I love this so much. I'm shuffling the cards. I have to shuffle the cards until I hear this message that says, okay, stop. So people say, how many times do you shuffle the cards? Uh,
Depends.
20, 2, 1, none. It depends. So, okay, I trust. This is all about all of it. Actually, every single thing we're talking about is about trusting your intuition. Trusting your intuition. And even when you talk about, well, how do you know it's not just raging against the machine, that's moving the energy. Trust your intuition. What do you feel about that call? What is your intuition telling you? And then that reminds me, by the way, if you were to do a reading and it comes up wrong, which that'd be pretty rare. But if it does, you know what to do. Not that. You're going to take the other way. Okay. It's like flipping a coin. If it comes up wrong, you still know what to do.
No,
Okay.
no.
So it's still, that's why I think readings are great. Like if you stop in at a reader of any kind who's in a little hole in the wall in some city center someplace, go for it, go for it, because you're always going to learn something and you're always going to be moved by that energy. Okay, here we go. Issue, action, outcome. This is collective. This is for everybody. This is for all of us. Okay, for all of us people, here we go. What is our collective issue? The Chariot. Okay, okay. Travel. See a bigger picture. See more than you thought you ever could. And if you can't go somewhere, like Rumi says, travel in the passageways of your mind. Okay, this card is about a leap in consciousness. It's a number 7 card, and each of the numbers has some kind of identity associated with it. As I mentioned, the number 1, that's unique being, original being. The number 2 is that passion, that call. The number 3 is the birth that comes out of it. Number 7 is about a leap in consciousness. And this is the card of the, as we say here, around here, the vision quest card, where we go on a vision quest, on a deep retreat in some way to know. So we'll be traveling outward or inward or both. And so that's what this card, the Chariot, is about. And once we understand this card, the Chariot, we hit the mark. That's what they say in the Western Mystery School. And basically, too, one other note about this card, creators of the tarot, of tarot decks in the past, traditionally signed this card with signature as creator of the deck, because once you fully understand this card, the Chariot, you hit the mark. Okay, and so it's like here it's signed, and my mother paints cards, and she signed it right there. It says T.V.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
T.V. And that's her signature. Okay. And then so that's our issue, leaping consciousness. Okay, so action. What action do we take now to make that leap? We need to make a leap. How are we going to do it? Oh, guess what? The sun. This is the card we had. Transparency. Shine a light on it. Okay, so if you have trauma, you have issues from childhood and whatever, shine a light on it, explore it, go into it, and shine a light on the things that are wrong. Don't be afraid. This is a big card of transcendence of fear, because a lot of reasons people don't respond is because they're afraid. But this is like innocence. This card is innocence. These people are innocent. They're young. They're invulnerable. That's how they feel, innocent and young. But what this is saying for us collectively is shine a light on it. Shine a light on it and follow your higher calling, and even expand it. And what is the goal for us? Okay, this doesn't maybe apply to other people right now, but for us, because this is a collective reading for all of us who might be hearing this, the goal is spiritual realization of the sun, which takes a leap in consciousness. Okay, then what will be the outcome? Now, I don't know. So drum roll, it could be
Ta-da.
anything. I know,
Yeah.
I know. So we'll see. Okay. Okay. The outcome is karma. Karma. This is your karma. Bring together all the pairs of opposites, like bring them together. It's not just black on one side and white on the other. It's checkered. It's intermingled. Okay, bring it all together. Here are the pencils on the side of the card. Write about it, talk about it, express it. These are colored pencils. Draw it. Get into the art of it. Know you're in the right place at the right time. You belong here. And also a note that all these cards fit on a diagram called the Tree of Life. I can't go into it right now because we don't have time, but also all these cards were painted on top of a diagram of the Tree of Life. And on the Tree of Life, this card, Karma, connects the number 5, and I've mentioned each one of those numbers has a meaning, and the number 5 is all about things falling apart. It's about dissolution. It's about deconstruction. It's about destruction. So the number 5, it's all the trauma. It's all the stuff that we go through, the horror, pain, suffering, old age, and death. That's the number 5. Well, and then the number 6 is synergy. It has to do with balancing between construction and destruction and building up and tearing down, essentially, the number 6. Okay, so this card of karma on the flow of the tree of life connects the number 5. It goes like this on the pattern. Here's 2 spheres here, and it connects the 5 with the 6. So the 5 is all the trauma and everything we've been through, and understanding it, asking questions, going through it again. Is there anything I could do better? Is there anything I might have done better? What will I do now? And then it comes to the 6, this place of synergy, which is the place we want to live from. And that the 6s in the tarot, the 6 of fire or wands, is about making your offering into the world after the suffering. The 6 of water is about faith, having faith. 6 of wind, the swords, is about clarity, intellectual clarity and light. 6 of earth is the beauty way, which is beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty above me, below me, all around me, inside me. So the karma, understanding our karma, leads into that place between the pain and suffering, old age and death, and living the beauty way. So what is the outcome? Living our karma and knowing that we're heading into where we want to go is living the beauty way, and we are in the right place at the right time. You are in the right place at the right time. Don't doubt that. I know I'm talking to anybody who might be listening.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's
Oh,
all good.
wonderful,
Bloom
Pamela.
where you're planted, right?
I,
Bloom where you're planted.
I really feel that was a big download you just gave us there. And you answered both my questions in one. That's genius, right? Because the last question was about where are we collectively, but that's actually what you just said in this one.
Well, I just love this so much. And I do want to mention again that if you're interested, if all of you, anybody who's listening is interested, you can join this, the mystery school through Second Saturday Tarot. You can join at any time, anytime you want to come to the
What's
class,
going on at that point? And it seems
right?
like it's a family business, Pamela. Is it like I found out that it's your mother who painted the pictures of the deck, and then I heard something about your son
Mhm.
made some as well. So it's like a
Oh,
family
yeah.
enterprise.
Well, in a way, it happened that way. My mother and I got drawn in. See,
Yeah,
this is the other thing that happens is because once you become
fire.
aware, it's not just your own passion, it's these mysterious people who, who, ooh, I'm getting chills. But you have to say yes,
Mm.
or so you meet these people along the way. They're like these angels, and they're guiding you, they're instructing you, and it might not just be humans. It's and they might not be incarnate. Like, in other words, it could be spirit guides, animal guides, or real animals crossing your path. What does it mean? So it's all up to you to interpret, go in, walk that path. But when we become aware, it starts happening more and more and more. So my mother and I got drawn into the Western mystery tradition at the same time. So we were peers there.
Really?
And yeah, she was an art professor. So she's in art. She's a professor in the university. And I was just a little bit ahead of her, maybe 6 months ahead of her. So I was in sociology, but we both, each of us joined 3 different mystery schools at the time to learn. We were downloading so much information. And, there was a history in our family too. Well, my family actually on the US soil, so to speak, goes back to the Salem witch trials. That was in 1492 and 1493. So that
Kind of a
branch,
thing.
yeah,
Oh,
that branch of the family's been here for a long time and still working through some of those energies, talk about trauma. And then my son, my kids, my children. So my son grew up with it. It was normal to them, and it remains normal to them. In fact, almost everyone in my family also took my classes. Aunts and just different people, just different people in my family. My kids, their mates, my kids and their mates and whatever. So it's several generations happening. So my son has created a tarot deck as well. I love his tarot deck. I mean, he doesn't have all the his mind he's different than I am. So, and he's an astrologer though. So you would probably be interested. It's called the Mystic Arts Tarot Deck. I love the artwork in it. Um, yeah, it doesn't have the all of the well, this take, let's put it this way. Okay. But he knows all this, okay? But this stuff, which is this many pages on this one tarot deck, that takes decades to create that. Okay, so his deck is new. I have no doubt that he will create all that. I'm actually helping him on his book right now, which just editing, but he's finished a tarot book focusing on the astrology, just the astrology of his deck. So, but it's not out yet. So he's working on that.
and
Yeah,
you
and
talk
so it
about,
is generations. It
yeah,
does feel like generations, and it's really exciting to share this path and then to work with these other generations of people.
it
I'm
will,
working I'm
yeah.
working with people's grandchildren right now that I would worked with the people with the grandparent several years ago, and now I'm working with the grandchildren. So what we're seeing is we are seeing generations. And again, okay, one last thing, it is global. And tarot is just one representation. This is a global movement. I'm right now, okay. I am right now about 20 miles south of San Francisco. That's where I am, over the ocean. Okay, where are you?
Somewhere over the ocean, far away from that.
Yeah, where are you? Can you say, or do you want to say?
Oh, where, you don't know where I am? I'm in Copenhagen, Denmark. I thought maybe to give.
See, I just want to get that out there again. Okay.
All right.
See where you're in Copenhagen.
Yes.
I'm in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're having this conversation. That is the most incredible,
Mm.
absolutely incredible. Right, well, so there we
Yes,
go.
time and space. So there we go. Thank you so much, Pamela Eakins. You've been generous
Oh,
to share, and I can only recommend Tarot of the Spirit and all of the rest of your authorship. And I'm definitely going to check out your school because you are
check it
going
out.
into
Well,
this
well,
world.
check it out. It's so one more time, it's www.tarotofthespirit.com. Okay. I mean, that's a way in. I've got 3 websites, but that's a way in, and just look at classes, second Saturday tarot.
So thank you so much, and see
Good.
you. See you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mannah. All right, bless you, bless, and much, much love, and continue on your path.